my privilege and also a pleasure to introduce to you a wonderful person, charming personality. Next 2 more years, not quite, we shall be celebrating the 700th anniversary of the death of Blessed John Duns Scotus. A genial thinker, indeed one of the greatest thinkers of the Christian world, indeed of the whole world. Unfortunately, he's not well known, and especially is not well known in those lands where he spent the greater part of his career, the lands where the English language is spoken. Most people will say they've never heard of him. And if they have heard of them, they will think of him as the Duns, the parody on his family name, or some would say the name of the town where he was born, but the family gave its name to that town, Duns, in the southeastern corner of Scotland, near the English border, near the River Tyne. Everyone's heard of Newcastle, but very few people know of that little village, still there, named Duns, where you can see the marker indicating the place of his birth. In any case, I have several reasons why I want to introduce you to him. First of all, he's not the Duns, the epitome of ignorance in matters educational. He is exactly the opposite. You could find anyone who is more the opposite of what everybody in the English-speaking world understands by Duns. It would be fairer if we translated the name Scotus, the Latin for a Scotsman, one from Scotland. We could call him Scotty, I suppose, for short. We might call him Scott. Everybody who has the name Scott probably doesn't realize that their namesake is Blessed John Duns Scotus. Anyway, it's not simply because he is a great thinker. Indeed, if it weren't for his promotion of the Immaculate Conception, he would be a saint today. And large numbers of people in England and Scotland before the Reformation, in Germany until the secularization, then continuously in southern Italy, especially in Nola, an ancient suburb of Naples, he has been honored as a genuine saint and potential doctor of the Church. That's far and above the requirements of honor to actually want to know someone who could influence so many people in the past for Our Lady and for her son. But I have another reason, and that has something to do with what everybody senses as some kind of crisis, not only amongst Christians at the present time, especially in the Western world, but within the entire human family. Not simply a crisis in discipline, but a crisis in basic convictions about the dignity of the human person. And I think that a study and acquaintance with Blessed John Duns Scotus is one of the best remedies that we could take for personally and in common getting beyond this horrendous crisis that threatens to destroy the basis of our civilization. Now, I know in the past year that his name has been occasionally in the papers, and that there are those in the scholarly world who think that he's responsible for the intellectual chaos that was introduced into the Western world towards the end of the Middle Ages. Well, that's simply not true, notwithstanding the opinion of certain scholars. But I'm not going to analyze on this occasion the profound metaphysics, the wonderful reflections on the teaching of our Lord, and especially the spirituality of St. Francis that would be found in his writings. He's called the subtle doctor, rightly so. We shouldn't be afraid of an acute thinker, because you can't be wise about spiritual matters unless you're subtle. But here's the point I want to make. Before we get to the real analysis of ideas, we must consider two things. One is negative, that practically in his own time, people realized here is the greatest and the last of the thinkers in the ancient Christian tradition. For those who in the next generation came after him took an approach exactly the opposite. We can see it in another Franciscan friar of the English province to which Scotus belonged, and that is William of Ockham. The introduction of the irrational into thought and the irrational into love and desire. But what we must recognize is that the first modernists in the medieval times, the late Middle Ages, understood that they were departing from Scotus, not being inspired by him. The Protestant reformers who were trained in Ockhamism, in the notion of the will as radically irrational, having no relationship to intellect and reason in that sense, understood that the Catholic thinker most opposed to their approach was Scotus. But that's the negative side. The positive side is that he is the theologian whose subtlety enabled him to work out all of the problems posing an obstacle to the acceptance of the Immaculate Conception as the fundamental meaning of that ancient title for Our Lady, All Holy, Panhagia Sanctissima Beatissima Virgo Maria. How could a thinker capable of so profound an understanding of the unique personality of the Virgin Mother of God be capable of undermining the whole of Catholic thought, Catholic discipline, Catholic culture? It's impossible. And this is why I think we can reflect upon the words of the English Jesuit poet, Father Hopkins. Of all men, the one who most sways my spirits to peace, of reality, the unrivaled unraveler, be rival Italy, St. Thomas, or Greece, Aristotle, who fired France for Mary without spot.